Vikram, we just had an amazing guest who is a super high-performing agent that is doing some really cool stuff in Peterborough, Canada. What were some of your takeaways?
The funny thing is that he's not doing anything super crazy cool. Like, he's just focused on the basics and he just keeps doing them daily. It's not like he's got this crazy hack where he's like, oh, I figured this out. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'd say this. He's got a long-term vision, right? So he knows that he's going to be in the industry for a while. So he's got a long-term vision, which allows him to do the work without being attached to the results. And then he's very consistent and focused. Like, he doesn't have the same type of schedule that I would recommend at this point, 7 years into the business. But he's got a very consistent schedule that he has found to work for himself, where he's getting his prospecting, he's getting his outreach in, he's getting his transaction management in. And so I think, for a young guy in his, I think he just turned 30 to be doing 30 plus deals a year consistently. I think y'all should take note.
100%. Like, for me, like, I think the big thing for here for brand new agents, or even agents might have been in the business for a couple of years, there's a really tactical thing that he said to do on Facebook that I really would encourage you to watch, because if you just do that one thing, I guarantee you there's people in your contact list, there's people on Facebook, and if you just do this one thing that Brandon explains, and people actually know that
you're not going to tell us what it is, Cody.
No, I'm not. You're going to have to listen to the podcast. Yeah, I'm teasing the podcast so they listen to the entire thing. But that was probably one of my favorite things, and also the fact that he's crushing it in Peterborough, one of my hometown. Is exciting for me as well, and the fact that he's doing a ton of content as well. So, I guess let's hop into the show, Vikram. Let's go.
Let's go, baby.
You are listening to the #1 real estate podcast in the world, where we talk with real estate professionals all across North America about their wins, losses, lessons, stories, help you win in your local market today. My name is Cody from Sheridan Street. I'm joined with my co-host of the Our Asian podcast, Vikram Deol. My man, where are you at right now? What's up? How you doing? How's life? I like the little light behind you. That's exciting. We'll start with that. But how are you doing, man? How are things?
I'm good, bro. I am in, where am I? I'm in Medellin, which, when I got off the plane, I was like, oh, I'm finally home. And I think I'll be here for like the next 4 to 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter. But I think right now we're 4 to 6 months. So I'm in a temporary spot till Monday. So if there's construction noise or whatever, just hopefully they can edit that out. And then I move to another unit for like 6 weeks. So yeah, it's good. Where are you at? You're in a new background too.
Bro, I'm back in Chatham in the cold weather. I'm like embracing the northern winter that I haven't experienced in a long time. So I'm back here traveling, visiting family, and then headed off to Vancouver next week.
And you're also midway through 75 hard.
Yeah, halfway through 75 hard. Almost failed last night because I almost fell asleep. I almost fell asleep on the couch last night, and it was
picture.
No, like I almost didn't make it to the gym last night. I was like last night. I woke up at like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, oh my God, like the gym closes in 2 hours. I need to literally hop to the gym and make sure I don't fail this 75 hard. So, but I did it. I did it, my friend. But
you're always allowed to do 2 outside workouts, just so you know.
Yeah, I know.
Just so you know, you don't got to go to the gym to suffer.
Yeah, exactly. But it's been a good suffering. But today we have a very, very special guest from what I would consider my hometown, Peterborough, Canada. And whenever I get to chat with people from Peterborough, Canada, the last person we had was Jess Yates, and Brandon and Jess are actually started a podcast together. And like, I'm really excited to kind of intro Brandon, kind of give him like a high level overview, because he's a super high performing single agent. And I don't know if we have had many single high performing agents on our podcast. So I'm really excited to really dive deep into what he's doing, how he's doing it in the local market, to just provide a massive amount of value back to everyone who's listening to the podcast. So Brandon, why don't you give us like a 2-minute Spark Notes version of kind of who you are, what you do? People obviously already know you're in Peterborough, but yeah, give us a high level overview of kind of who you are, what you do.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate the introduction there. So I'm Brandon. My parents sold real estate when I was growing up. I've always been in love with real estate ever since, as far as I can remember, which I think is like age of 10 or 11. I'm 30 years old now. I started real estate when I was 22, and I've been doing it now this will be my 7th year here in Peterborough for Century 21. And I just love real estate. I've always have. When I was younger, I didn't think I wanted to be, say, a salesperson. I thought I wanted to do something a little more business management type thing, leadership. And that's what I went to university for, was for business. My second oldest brother, who's 9 years older than me, went to Trent too for business. And I kind of followed his footsteps at that age of like 18 to 20. And then I just ended up getting hired by a real estate team in the GTA area. And I quickly realized, you know what, I would love doing this sales part that I was hesitant about at that age. And then I went kind of back to it. So I kind of like knew I wanted to be a realtor through parents. Then I'm like, nah, I'm going to do like the computer type job. And then I went right back to it. And I'm very glad that I did. And it's just such a fun job. I really like kind of the hybrid lifestyle real estate can provide you with.
Yeah. Well, we just got to know each other here a second ago. And I think I want to jump right into it because you grew up with the knowledge about real estate, which a lot of real estate agents don't have. So I think you had an advantage. I was talking to, I was actually a guest on a podcast yesterday with Dan, who was on our podcast a few weeks ago. And we were talking about how the expectations are so they're just so wrong for real estate agents, because real estate agents don't understand what it takes to be successful. They don't realize that they're the marketing, they're the finance, they're the advertising, they're the transaction management, they're the legal, they're the contracts, right? They're the inspectors, they're the designers, the stagers. Right? There's so much stuff to get into real estate that it's daunting to think that anybody would actually want to get into real estate. And last year you did what? How many transactions?
About 35.
And you're totally solo.
Yeah.
So, for the people that are, doing 5, 10, 12 transactions a year, right? How are you able to manage your time right now? Like, what does a day in the life of Brandon look like? Do you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and, salute your butthole to the sun and, get all your energy? Like, Jody loves my questions. What does your schedule look like, Brandon?
I'm going to have to try that. I get up at 3 for 7 hours. No, I'm just kidding. My schedule, well, I'm a dad now. So basically I wake up when my daughter wakes up. So that's like 6 a.m.-ish, give or take 30 minutes. This morning, a little more on the take 30-minute side, so earlier. And then I'm with her till my wife gets up. And then I get up and then I eat. I kind of have the same morning routine. But yeah, like I'll eat, I'll get ready. And then I go to my in-laws' house because it's right beside me. And I would do a workout. Well, my gym stuff's in their basement because it wouldn't fit in my house. And so I work out and I come back and I try to be started.
So you wake up, like I want to get like nitty gritty. So you wake up about 6 o'clock, you hang out with your daughter to 6:30-ish, 6:45.
Yep, that's exactly right.
You go to the gym from like 6:45 to 7:30.
No, more like 7:30, 7:45 until about 8:30.
Okay. And then what time do you get to the office?
Back at my house. I don't go to my office to work. I just work from my house. And that would be basically after I get back, shower, blah, blah, blah. It's probably like 9, clean the house quickly, like 9:15.
Okay. And what do you do when you start working? Like
I call it like defensive activities. So it just means I'm doing anything that after I turned my phone off last night, that's kind of like overflowed until the next day. Messages, right? I mean, 80% of what we do is just dealing with messages, as you would know. So it's just getting back to people. I basically like open up my browser. I have like certain tabs that come up and I just go through them one by one, as I always do. Like I check my banking, I check my investments, and then I go and I check the MLS system for new listings, and then I check my emails, I check Facebook, and then I go to all my messages. So I get all that stuff done. That could take anywhere from like 20, 30 minutes to 2 hours. It just depends because of those messages and stuff. I call it like defensive activities because I'm not doing like prospecting or more offensive type stuff as a realtor. I'm just kind of handling what's there that I've been pushed aside to sleep and stuff the night before and to have some sanity. So that's kind of what I do first.
And what time do you start to prospect?
So for prospecting, for me, what I usually do is I do that and then I go right to managing leads. So I have an Excel sheet with all my leads on it for buyers, sellers, and I have now leads, 3 to 12 month leads. And then I have my A team, my personal circle buyers will also have open house leads. So I would check on, I have a column that says touch base when, and then I just know who to touch base with. I know today's the 10th. So I just see the 10th. And then I just go, okay, that's 6 people, pretty easy. So as it gets up to 30, so as low as maybe 3, I just go boom, boom, get all that done. That could as well be 20, 30 minutes up to 2 hours, probably more like an hour or so. And then I just started recently cold calling. I used to, when I started at door knock every single day for like 1 to 2 hours at least, except for Sundays. I think I would take one day off of the week.
When you started in Peterborough, because I'm really interested to know now, but I'm like, again, like obviously it took you time at some point to get to the 35 homes a year. Like in the beginning, you were door knocking, you were cold calling, you were doing all these things, and then your sphere over time. Like, is that kind of how it operated? Like you implemented the basics in the beginning, and then you were able to kind of focus more. Like, how has that been with your business?
Yeah, so I'm just opening up here, like how many, because I guess I write it down once at the end of the year. So first year, I was, I think, 8 months, and I did 7 deals, and then 20, 20, 30, 47, 32, and then now 35-ish. So it's gone down past 2 years basically, but so it really took me about 1 year till then I saw it in 2017, middle end of 2017. I've been doing basically 2-3 deals a month very consistently. I actually, the other day, it's good timing that you're asking because I didn't really know this. I looked at how consistent my business is in terms of is there any gaps, like 2-3 months of nothing. There hasn't really been any. There's been none since since I started. So a lot of that prospecting was front end loaded the first 1, 2, especially 2 years, because it was like first year, second year from March, April, May. So like April all the way to like October for door knocking, just due to weather. One, call that a season or year, then the next year, and then I quit door knocking. And then I've been really religious on open houses to try and lead generate, but that's only Saturday, Sunday, 1 to 3. Then I call them all Monday, and then I flow it over each day. If they don't answer, keep calling like about 4 times in a row or 5 times. And if there's no answer, then delete the lead. But in terms of like cold calling every single day or prospecting that's daily, in the past 3 years, it's hard to it's not like a 1 hour time block or 2 hours of cold calling. Because what other really prospect method is there besides? I guess I do Facebook message people. I did that. I have like 7 messages I've used over the past 5-6 years, going through my entire friends list over and over and over. But that might only be 2 months of getting that done. And then I'd wait 6 more months and send another round out, or even longer, like 10 months. So it really varies. It's hard to answer that question about like the prospecting daily. I find that most of my days I'm working anywhere from 6 hours, 5 hours low end up to, 12 hours, 13 hours is possible. It's kind of like a wave. If you hit like a 12-hour day, usually it's another 10, 11, 12-hour day, and then it kind of tapers off like a wave. But if I only have 6-7 hour days, that's why now I'm starting to cold call, because I want to always make sure I'm at least hitting like 8 hours a day. If there's an hour free, why not add in some cold calling, even if I don't think it'll really generate great results compared to other methods, or I guess where I'm kind of at now, it's not as needed, but I think it's mostly an excuse not to do it at my stage even, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. It's really interesting because like you hear so many different perspectives, and it's like what I'm hearing is like, it's like you, even at the 35 deals, this is what's really interesting. Even at the 35 deals, you're still going back to cold calling to say to yourself, okay, like I could potentially make this cold calling thing work. It might not work, but it's like, I do have the time in my day, even doing 35 deals a year, in order to like regiment an opportunity where I could create more opportunity. So it's really interesting. Now, when it comes to the structure within your business, like how do you, because I'm so fascinated by 35 deals with no TC and no admin. Like,
Do you have a TC? Does somebody do your TC work? Does your office handle it?
Well, sorry. Yes, you're right. Her name's Kayla. She's our transaction coordinator at Central 21. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you have a TC, just know it.
I was like,
okay. Because I'm like sitting here being like, how do you do all the TC work and all of the admin work that goes on top of doing everything else? So interesting. So no admin, but you do have TC work. Now, I know that Century 21, because I know Vanessa, she's always provided a crazy amount of support at your brokerage. What maybe for like the agents that are coming into the business right now that are unsure of how to find like a good brokerage, like you've been with Century 21 now for 7 years. Did you start with Vanessa?
Yeah.
So like what has that experience been like? And like what would you recommend to like a realtor coming in to the business, or maybe they potentially are only doing a couple deals a year? How do you find a good brokerage, and how do you know that you're at a good brokerage?
Me, when I started, I focused on the money, which was, looking back, it's not that it's not important. Sure it is, but it's just not the thing you should focus on. At least it wasn't the thing I should have focused on. Why? Because I didn't know enough, and I think most agents probably don't know enough either when they're starting out. So I'm assuming that's probably a good answer for everyone. But unless you know a lot, then maybe it's different. But for me, looking back, Century 21 was the only office where the guy I met with, his name was Doug, our business development manager. He's still there. He's the only one that was like, after the meeting, hey, free next Monday? Can you come back? I was like, yeah. And I study like Grant Cardone, Kevin Ward, Brian Casella, these sales guys I have for the past 7 years. This morning, working out, I was listening to Kevin and Brian video on YouTube. Grant hasn't been posting as much lately, I find. But anyways, I just really had an appreciation for people that are willing to do the hard thing, meaning like the sales side of like, you don't just end the conversation and that's that. But every other brokerage was just doing that. Doug was the only one at C21 that was like, hey, you're free next week. And that kind of showed me like they care, right? And they understand how this works. That was my first impression. And then choosing them, looking back too, it was mostly Doug again, because I would call him like once every day or 2 days, and Jessica Yates actually. And I would learn so much through the both of them over my first year that it just really helped me. So to answer that question, I would just say, to sum it up, basically just focus on training, because that's really what it comes down to. Call it what you want. I just think that means education. It just means knowing more stuff about what you don't know. And sometimes it's hard to try to figure out what to learn when you don't know anything about it. Like you don't know what you don't know, So having a brokerage that is going to be knowledgeable and be able to actually answer the phone and help you at 8 o'clock at night when you're trying to figure out, what's normal in an escape clause with an SOBP, in an offer, stuff like that, then that goes a long way, because you times that over the scale of like 10,000 questions in your first year. You're going to learn a lot more than not knowing all that, and then maybe even putting yourself at risk and your clients at risk because you're not protecting them contractually or something.
I want to piggyback a little bit here, because I literally just wrote an email about why a lot of agents will, they'll botch their calls, or they'll make excuses. And I think you kind of hit it on the head, but I want to hear your opinion. How important is it to have that broker support, so that when you show up and you're writing a contract for a buyer, or you're listing a home for a seller, and you have that question in the middle of the night? Because I've heard agents say to me, Vic, I'm actually pretty good on the phone, but what happens is I get in front of a buyer and I don't know the language of the contract, or I don't know what to say in a buyer or a listing appointment. And I get so nervous that I actually don't want to sit in front of people. So it's not that they're not good on the phone. They're just not confident because they don't have the secondary support. So how important do you think it was in your success, Brandon, early on, to have that Doug and that Jessica to kind of reach out to?
It's like 90 to 95%, probably 85, 90% in my first year. The other 10% was the other three names I mentioned. And the other 5% is maybe outside support, like family or something. So it's very, very crucial. Like thinking about having an offer call with you, say you're putting an offer on a house with me, and I remember some of my first offers I did. And I remember just being so nervous about, I'm like, holy shit, I'm here. I might, and I'm playing here. So I'm like, whoa, I can make like $10,000. And a bit of that would hit me like, whoa, because I've never made money like that in my life. But also knowing that they're buying a huge asset, I don't want to screw up and get sued, because they teach you a lot of that in like the education of getting your license. And so basically just knowing that you can have someone where you can kind of go through writing an offer with a few times. It really just is repetitions, right? It's like having a conversation with you and like scripts and stuff. I used to, and still kind of do now, but I used to really every day memorize scripts and it helps you just know what questions to ask in a conversation. Well, putting those repetitions in will really just help in terms of like sitting down at the table with someone who wants to do it in person to write the offer, and you're talking about deposit, and they say, well, how does the deposit work, Brandon? It's like, well, I don't know. I just know that when I did my license, I think it's about 5% you're supposed to put down. That's a horrible answer, because in Peterborough, that's way more than we do here. It's actually more like 10 or 15 grand, which would be probably like 2-3% of the purchase price for a deposit amount in our area. But also, can you explain, the purpose of the deposit? So it's just stuff like that. It's really just getting the reps in, being okay to feel nervous. You're sweating on the spot. You're nervous. Your heart's going. You're like, shit. You'll get through that. And you do that enough times, you'll learn. Your brain's going to memorize like that quickly because you're put under pressure. And that pressure is going to really help you in the beginning.
I'm fascinated by the 35 sales, and I want to go back to that. And I want to go back to even the fact that you knew the numbers for the last 4 years, because like the vast majority of real estate agents I speak with don't know what they did last year. So it's you clearly have, like you said, like, I track things on a spreadsheet. I understand where my business is coming from. Me and Vic speak with a lot of real estate agents that, like, generally for the most part, they're like, yeah, they say, my business comes from sphere of influence. I want to unpack that a little bit with you, because 35 sales in sphere of influence sounds like you have a strategy, because you don't do 35, you don't wishful think your way into 35 sales a year. So, and clearly, what does sphere of influence actually look like to you, and what do referrals look like to you? Like, how do you feel in your local market you are separating yourself from the rest of the people that are, like in Peterborough, we know, I think the last time I checked, the average realtor does 6 deals a year, 5-6 deals a year. Yeah. So 5 deals a year. You're well above that consistently too over the last 3 years. So a lot of agents are like, yeah, I built my business off of sphere of influence. Like, what does sphere of influence look like to you, and how do you cultivate that?
Yeah. So I'll try and answer this in a really granular, kind of specific way, because I don't know, I hate when people give answers that are too high level. I want to try and be specific. So hopefully another agent starting out can hear this and maybe it helps. But for me, it would be Facebook, friends list, messaging, craft a message you can pretty much copy paste, insert name, and then just send that to everyone in the beginning. When I started, I was 22, and I say that because most agents in Peterborough were a lot older. So I just was aware that there wasn't really any other agents my age. So I know most people that I know, back to the friends list, probably don't have an agent. And they might not even be in a position to buy a house yet. But houses were a lot cheaper then. It was a little easier. So I thought maybe they're like 3 to 6 years out. But if you take 5% of that, at the time, probably 1,000 friends on Facebook or 1,500 or something, there's still business there, even for the young people out there. So I'm like, I should still message them and build that rapport, that relationship over time, cultivate it, whatever. And then eventually, hopefully they'll come to me by just providing enough value. So that's the key, because in that message then, is it like, hey, I'm a real estate agent now. When you go to buy a house, I'd love to help you. Not necessarily a bad message right there, but you can only do that so many times until that's annoying. You got to be like, hey, here's like what house prices are like now. This is how much you have to have saved up, just in case you're wondering. Something that at least helps them a little bit more. So like, wow, that was kind of interesting. It caught my attention for 3 minutes and it's useful. I'll remember that. And so maybe when they think about real estate, when the time comes for them and they're 6 months out and they want to meet up with someone to go over it, then hopefully my name comes up in their brain, kind of thing. And so you do that to enough people in their 20s, my age, starting out here in Peterborough, where there's not a lot of competition. I think that over time that just starts to work. Now that's one piece. The other thing would be other things that kind of feed into that, like just doing.
I just want to jump in real quick, Brandon, because you touched on a lot of really good nuggets there, and I don't want it to get lost in the smoke. You talked about the long game, right? And I just want everybody to listen to that. And you talked about the long game. You said, I knew that these people would eventually transact. And if I just provided enough value to them for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they would hopefully 5 or 10% of them, not all of them, but a small percentage of them would remember me. And that multiplied by a big enough number is a lot of transactions in your pocket, but you're cultivating the walnut tree, knowing that you're going to have to plant it and water it and take care of it for a few seasons before it's going to start producing fruit for you.
That's very true. Yeah.
So I didn't want to cut you off, but I also didn't want to like escape over that and not have people hear it. What was this? You're about to drop a second bomb.
No, it's okay. And you reminded me too. The other thing is when you do get that first transaction or something, like for me, what I did was I would just take a picture out front of the house with the sold sign and just post it on social media, like social proof. Not about me, but I'm there. But I'm not saying like, hey, look how awesome I am. I helped John and Karen buy their first house or whatever, right? It was like John and Karen here and tell a little bit about them or something. And then you show that, boost it on Facebook, get that out there and just keep leveraging because you're not going to get many successes early on. So you really don't want to waste an opportunity there. I thought that was big in the beginning, coupled with just doing videos to actually provide people with value. That was the next thing I was going to say. It's just, for me, it was just posting 1 to 3 minute long videos that are quick. I'm not asking for too much time. The title hopefully will be something very specific to grab your attention, like how much to have saved up for a house in Peterborough. I mean, if you're thinking about getting a house soon, you might click that and go, oh, okay, I had no idea. They don't teach us a lot of the stuff in school. And so you just think through that framework or that lens over and over, and you keep doing videos. I do it way more consistent now than the beginning. Like I'm every second Wednesday, I post a video on top of the podcast and some other stuff. But in the beginning, I was probably doing it once every 3-4 weeks. And I thought, hey, maybe I'll run out of ideas. But as long as you're creative about it, and when you're talking to people, if someone says one thing, like yesterday, someone said something like, oh, that's a good video topic right there. So I just write it in my notes in my phone.
What was it? Do you remember?
I'll tell you. It was weekly video ideas. Any difference in selling a $300,000 home or a $3 million home? So that'll be my next video I'll do. Yeah, just stuff like that, right? Like, you know, that doesn't really help a first-time buyer right there. That's more for a seller, maybe more of a seller that has an expensive home that thinks they want to hire an agent that only sells expensive homes. And I'll make a comment on that in terms of the video. But in the beginning, like focus more because I was really niching to like first-time buyers, people my age.
I got a question for you, and I love it. You know, anybody who is listening, and I'm talking if you're doing 10 deals a year, and we got a lot of those people in the Real Estate Growth Academy. They're doing 10 and they want to go to 30, and they're like, why can't we get it? It's because you're trying to service everybody. You're very buyer heavy right now. You said you're very focused on your first time buyers. Now you're starting to get more into some sellers. It sounds like. How do you go from 35 to 50? How do you go from 35 to 70? Because it sounds like you said in the beginning, you've been around this 30 to 35 number for the last couple of years. How do you go to the next level? What does Brandon need to do to get to that 40, 50, 60 number?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I hope I'm counting deals correctly. An end would be obviously a buyer or a seller, and then a referral would be 0.25. So that's how I got those numbers.
Okay.
Meaning though, like last year, because of my daughter being born, I took off some time and I shared 55% of the transactions were some kind of referral. So to me, I'm like, well, I think I could do 40, 50 easily because one year I did 40 something. That was 2020. So, and I've shared more the following years. So I think that my limit on my own is probably like, well, I don't want to say limit, but I know that I can do high end 50 to 60 range. Now, if you say 70, then I'm like, whoa, I mean, that's pushing me. Could I do it? That'd be sweet. I don't know, but I think I could. I'd try. More than that, I don't understand what that would be like because that's too much. I can't fathom that. You know, I can't fathom that kind of production. I would still aim for it though. But sorry, what was your question though?
What would you need to do, right? Because I believe a lot of real estate agents do have families, right? They have kids, they have other obligations. They're not just full-time in the grind. What would you need to do to get to those, you know, to see your business go up by 25%, which would be somewhere in the, you know, that would be somewhere around the 45 to 50 range. So what do you perceive would need to happen?
For me specifically, because I can only really talk about myself because I'm not anyone else, but for me, it would be to hire an assistant 100%. Like I need to do that.
So, you know, if you're comfortable answering this, because I think that there's multiple agents that are in your shoes, and we've chatted with them, and there's some agents that we work with that are in the 30 range. Like, what holds you back? Like, what's going through your head right now of not hiring any? Like, if you're doing consistently 3 years in a row, you've done over 35 deals. Like, why haven't you hired an assistant yet? And like, what can you give maybe as advice to somebody that might be in that 20 to 25 deal range that knows that they need to hire an assistant, but they just haven't yet?
Well, I would like to first say, like, I differentiate between people who want to, how to measure this, right? Like, are you measuring on units? Are you measuring on effort? Are you measuring on how much money you made? Let's say how much money you made. So if you want to make $70,000 to $170,000 a year, you might not need an assistant, or maybe you do because of your efficiency and how much time that's taking for you due to your efficiency. So you firstly want to know, like, what's the lifestyle I want? And then once I know that, I'm 30 years old and I have my life set up nicely with my friends, my family, and other things besides real estate that I don't feel like it's taking away too much there. I still feel like I can push forward a lot with real estate. So for me, I want to then do that. But if you reach a point where, like, I don't want to anymore, you might not need an assistant, right? Because you're like, you could probably handle 12 deals a year on your own, or maybe you can't, who knows? But like, let's say you're at, like, for me, 35, and what's stopping me from hiring an assistant and doing more? It was really just, I wanted to get really, really efficient at what I do. I wanted to be able to take, like, valuing a house from 2 hours down to like 40 minutes. I remember one of my first listings, it took, like, in my head, it was the whole month of August. It was actually my grandparents' house. And I remember now, if I have a listing coming up, which I think I do next week, but anyways, if I have one, I just need to dedicate, I don't know, 2 hours to the paperwork. I need to dedicate, like, get the lockbox up. So I got to maybe drive there once, twice kind of thing. It's way quicker and way more efficient, So get efficient. And then once efficient, then identify tasks, because most of them will be for an admin person, really. They're not income producing activities. And then figure out when you can offload that to an admin. And then I got to be comfortable knowing, okay, well, that means I could cold call more, prospect more, do more appointments. Ask myself, do I want to do that? Well, then by how much? Because again, it comes back to kind of like the dial of the lifestyle. Do I really want 8 hours of, like, intense appointments and cold calling? Probably not, no. But if I'm doing on average, like, 2 hours a day of that, 3, which I think I am, a lot of my work is admin stuff. That's not that bad. I could probably double that. So if I hired admin, focus on doubling that, my income could probably go up a lot more even. So there's a lot more room to scale there.
I love that. Wrapping up here, for somebody that might want to learn or might want to chat with you, maybe it's an agent to agent referral, maybe it's maybe they just want to kind of pick your brain around what you're doing in Peterborough, like, where would be the best place to send them?
Like to reach out to me? Yeah, for sure. You could follow me on Instagram. It's @followtimmins, or add me on Facebook, Brandon Timmins. I have, like, my personal page and my business page, and then I have a YouTube channel too. I think it's just Brandon Timmins. I should know that, right? I think it's just Brandon Timmins. And then you can also text me. I post my number everywhere. It's my cell phone. Go right to here, 705-875-5392. And you can call me anytime.
Brandon, man, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate, you sharing kind of like in-depth, behind the hood of what you're doing specifically in Peterborough and how you're performing as a high performing single agent. We really do appreciate it. And I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the RE Agent Podcast, the #1 podcast in the world. We'll see you soon.